Good evening. This is Dr. Leisha. I pray that you are well on this evening. So, I have my Facebook friends, I got my Instagram friends. I pray that both groups of friends, both groups of affiliates and connections are well on tonight. It's been a rough week. It's been a rough week. If you are in the United States, it has been a rough week, but God has been faithful, and we are here on this Saturday. So I normally don't go live on Saturday nights. This is kind of unusual for me to go live on a Saturday night. Not like I had a hot Saturday night. Well, I do. I actually had an offer for a date tonight, but it's COVID. Who wants oxtails? Trying to die for some oxtails. I'm not dying for no oxtails. So I gave them a rain check, and maybe I'll think about it next weekend. But I wanted to come on for just a few minutes to talk about something I'm going to be talking about a lot for the next 31 days, okay? So essentially, my next book comes out 1 month from today. So I believe it's January the 9th. And so my book comes out on February the 9th. That's when it will be released to the world via Amazon. And I've been doing a lot of discussions about the book, helping my friends, people who are close to me, kind of understanding what the book is about. My grandmother's 92 years old, and so my grandmother's like, I'm going to help you sell some of them books. I said, wait, Granny, the last book was a devotional. It was a broader read, so it was a book that, people from a variety of stations in life, from a variety of experiences, from a variety of races and backgrounds could kind of engage in. I was like, Granny, I don't know if this one is something we want to use you to market, okay? This is a completely different book. And so some of the people who follow me, you're going to get sick and tired of me talking about it for the next 30 days. So you might want to mute me as someone you follow, or you may want to stop following me or unfriend me or whatever, because I'm going to be talking about what I'm talking about for the next 30 days. I am going to be talking about digging for intimacy, sex, sensuality, and loving God. So in November of 2016, I'm giving you some backstory. I was fortunate enough to finally publish a compilation of devotional writings, stories. It was a couple of my sermons that people had, were well received. And God gave me the idea of this whole concept of digging for treasure. And it's a concept that we're all familiar with. And so it's this concept of, to get diamonds. So some of us like diamonds. We like precious jewels. If you're going to get precious jewels, they're not going to be the same process like a cubic zirconia or something that's going to be $17.99 in the case, okay? So a diamond, for it to have its 4 C's, for it to have its cut, its character, for it to be determined how many carats it is, a diamond has to go through a lot of processing. And so that's the intention of that particular first book, Digging for Treasure, Jewels of Hope When Pressure and Time Collide. So I was blessed to publish that with God's Child Publishing. One of my classmates is the publisher for that publishing house. So was glad to publish it. And over time, people have been asking me, when am I going to write another book? Well, of course, some of you know that since 2014, I think I may have said 2016, a lot has gone on in my life. So from 2014, I have gone and done a whole bunch of stuff, okay? A whole bunch of stuff. But God still had me writing. And so some days I share my writing on social media platforms. Some days it's in my journal. Some days it's in my head. Some days it's on a Post-it note that just kind of lands in a box or wherever it lands. But this time we've been in with the pandemic, it has really forced me to think about all of the things I've been assigned to do in the earth, okay? So if you follow me for any amount of time, I'm always trying to agitate and stir up people's gifts so that they can live out and carry out what God is calling them to do in the earth. I believe that God doesn't need another clone of someone else, because God made us all fearfully and wonderfully made. And so we are to live out and be the people God created us to be. Hey, LaShonda, I'm glad to see that you are doing well. God created us to be unique individuals. And sometimes we get lost in the sauce because we are still trying to be everybody else. We're trying to be somebody else. And so I know that my assignment in the earth is to be a creator, to be one who who provides content, whether that content is through preaching, whether that is through writing, whether that is through comedy. I am a divine content creator, okay? I'm a divine content creator. And of course, there is no category on LinkedIn for that, but that is what God has called me to be. And so I do that through storytelling. I do that through comedic writing. I do that through sharing, my day in a way that is palpable, is something that people connect with. And so God gave me some other stories. And maybe I don't even want to say God gave me those stories, but God permitted me, allowed me to navigate through some other stories. So I have titled this live, Why Be Broke and Broken? And I know you're saying, well, what is this all about? She talking about her book. She talking about her journey. Y'all know I'm going to bring that thing together. Because didn't I tell you I am a divine content creator, okay? So many of the circumstances we've been through in life, we go through them and we're like wondering, how can anything salvageable, how can anything redeemable come out of it? And I believe that some of us have gone through some things that God still gets glory from, and we don't know how God gets glory from. And that sometimes is by sharing our testimony, sharing what we've been through, how we've gotten through it, how God has been with us in that moment. And some of us do it through testimony time in church, and others of us, we do it through writing. And so I am so excited about my second book. This book has been in the making for a number of years, and actually there's a third book floating around, and I was hoping maybe I'll put that book out so then they'll know I'm real saved before they get this book, because this book kind of ratchet, and that's not how God planned it, okay? So God is going to allow me to release Diggin for Intimacy, Sex, Sensuality, and Loving God before the other book that I was trying to put out. And so I'm going to let God do what God does, okay? I am stepping out of the way, and I'm allowing God to do what God does, and that is allowing me to put out this book that, in my mind, is a game changer. And the reason I say it's a game changer, it's just the way I've been feeling about this book. This book is not just, oh, how I love Jesus stories, okay? This is not a sanitized, oh, how I love Jesus story. This is every time I talk to my book coach, and I hired someone because I teach writing, okay? I teach storytelling, I teach journalistic writing, but I had to hire someone because, one, I needed somebody to focus me, okay? I needed someone to kind of hold me in and get it together. And so when you hire a book coach, they provide a number of services. For some people, they have to kind of, massage what it is that you write, because maybe you're not a strong writer or you're not a strong storyteller. For someone like me, she just needed to kind of corral me in because I'm all over the place. And I have all these stories. They've been written. They're in parts. They're in pieces. But I needed some structure to get the story done. And so I am going the self-publishing route. I know a number of people over time, they kind of wait and they pitch it to established publishers. And I was telling someone last night, I had an opportunity to pitch a story to a larger publisher, a religious publisher, but I trust that if that had gone through, it would have been the very sanitized, I love Jesus, Jesus loves me kind of story. But because I can publish this on my own, this is going to be raw, transparent. And I was thinking how can I describe this genre? How can I describe the finished work? And I'm if you put Iyanla, Zane, and Juanita Bynum together and they made a baby, that's what you got. So you got a little Zane-esque kind of stuff. You got a little Iyanla, you got a little Juanita Bynum. You put it all together, shake it up, and that's what Diggin for Intimacy is all about. And so what I do in this text is I compile 10 essays. 10 essays that talk about various aspects of intimacy, sexuality, sensuality, and discovering who I am as a sexual being. And so in that discovering, I also provide readers with questions, okay? So with Digging for Treasure, my previous book, then there were questions for people to kind of do, to work through. And, it's interesting when you put these books together, you never know, even though you might have a target audience, you kind of never really know, what God has placed inside of you, your target audience or your avatar, that target group that you're targeting. But then you never know how God's going to use the words that are planted and that you have sown into the earth. And so with Digging for Treasure, God did some things with that book that I never imagined. So people who are married said, we read it together. Like, it's something for us to laugh about. It's something for us to think through our own situations. It's something to break up the monotony of our day. And I never in a million years, when I was compiling Digging for Treasure, thought that people who were married would sit down and read it and make sense of it, and it would make sense for their relationships, because here I am writing it back then as a 40-something, early 40-something year old woman. And I was like, oh, okay, that's good. And the reason I know that it was a God thing, because I heard this from couples who were married like for 2 years, and then there were couples who were married like for like 52 years, and they were all having the same relationship with the book that I never envisioned anybody would have with the book. And so my prayer is, with Digging for Intimacy, sex, sensuality, and loving God, is that people will read it in community. So people will have friend groups, girl groups, people that you share with, people that you can be very transparent with, because as a writer, I've been very transparent in every story that I have shared. I've been very prayerful. I've kind of told my book coach a couple times, I'm like, I think this too ratchet. This too ratchet. She was like, I think that people are going to be open. She said, because these are things that nobody talks about. She said, we might talk about it with one girlfriend, but she said, we don't have robust conversations around these topics that we can really get some resolve. We can really get clarity. We can really understand what is going on. And so I'm looking forward to people. Hi, hey Kia, thank you. This is made by a vendor in Colombia. So shout outs to the sister who hand makes the jewelry. She had to go back and make me some earrings for the necklace. So, I want people to be in dialogue. And so most of what I create, it's not just for you to read it, for you to enjoy it, but you need to do some work, okay? I believe you have to do your work. So that's that. When I said Iyanla Zane and Juanita Bynum, that's Iyanla coming in. I want you to do your work. And so as I release the book to the earth, I have some really exciting conversations that I have planned that I will advertise in advance for you to come online to hear those conversations. I just confirmed today one of my good girlfriends who is a licensed counselor, therapist. She actually counsels couples as well as individuals. She's going to come on the first week of February before the book is actually released to kind of help us get a handle on the definitions that we walk around with. So she's going to discuss what is sex, what is sexuality, what is sensuality, what is sexual orientation. And then she's going to talk about the African American experience as it relates to how people of color have come into embracing their sexuality, okay? So I'm excited about that conversation, because I don't want this to be just a book that you put down, but I want this to begin a conversation, whether in your homes, in your local communities, in your churches, in your friend groups, because if we're going to be dealing with COVID and we're going to be dealing with politics, we might as well get some other aspect of our lives healthy and whole, okay? So then she's going to come on. Then I have another Reverend Doctor sister. She's almost a doctor. She is a reverend. She is a sex educator. She's going to be coming in. She goes into churches, Black churches, to help groups talk about sexuality, to help people, especially queer women and heterosexual, cisgender women, kind of really have good discussions. And so she covers a broad spectrum, okay? And so we talk about our sexual orientation, our sexuality, our sensuality. Sometimes we don't know what these words are. We just use them. And I'm sure at some point I probably used something wrong in the book, but God forgive me, okay? Here for it all. So she's going to be with us on February the 16th. And then on February the 7th, I'm going to be talking with one of my sister docs from Iowa. And she's by trade as a school psychologist. We're going to have one discussion on her platform, but I'm hoping that she will come on my platform so we can have a discussion later about how our relationships impact our children, because that's something that I write about. And I write about, how are our images of healthy relationships, of how people should treat one another in a relationship, of sexuality, of public displays of affection. How are all those things shaped, or what we call socially constructed? And we learned that at such a very young age. So if you didn't grow up around people who were cuddling and kissing and patting your mama, your grandmama on the butt, you know, when you become 20, you're like, don't touch me. Well, that's a normal part of, you know, being in a relationship. But if that's not your experience because you have not grown up around that, then when someone shows you affection, then you don't know what that looks like. And so, you know, you'll see in the days to come, I'll be putting questions up all around. One of the recent questions I put up on the book page, and that's the Digging for Treasure page because it's a series, is I talked about how it takes only a few minutes or a few hours to get tangled up, and then it can take a lifetime to get untangled, okay? So in the book, I talk about being in some tangled up situations and how God blocked it and didn't let it be so. But initially, it wasn't one of those shouting moments. I had to navigate through the process. So I just wanted to share with you what my intentions are, what my vision is with the book. I want to get you all excited. It will be released on Amazon February the 9th. People have been asking about pre-orders, and my book coach is even trying to nudge me to do pre-orders, and I think it's just me, okay? It's going to be good, girl. It's going to be good. And so I'm a little hesitant to do the pre-orders because I see people who do pre-orders. They're always talking about how it's on the way. It's on the way. I don't want to have that discussion. I don't want to answer emails. I don't want my virtual assistant to answer emails. I want the book to just be out there. You go get it on Amazon. You support. You share it with people. You tell them. You read it. You laugh. You cry. You dig into your own story. You get set free, because I think it's one of those books that you are going to go through a variety of emotions. And so in the book, in addition to the essays and the questions, I also have a resource list of ways in which you can continue your process. Because even though you're reading this book, I think for a lot of people, it's going to stir up some things that they need to attend to. Okay, so a book or a conversation might start the work, and then you might need to go sit on a therapist's, couch. Or you might need to go to a sex therapist, or you might need to go to Sex Addicts Anonymous, or you might need to resolve some things with your parents. You may need to go and do something else beyond reading this book. So if you don't know, and if you can't see, I am excited about the work that God is going to do in this book. I had to be very vulnerable, very transparent. But, I think in this day and hour in which we are in, nobody wants another canned testimony, okay? Nobody wants another canned testimony about how, you've been keeping yourself and the Lord done kept you. And some of it might be a lie and some of it might be true. But I think people need to have honest conversations. And my prayer, this is my prayer, and I've told people this before, and I've one time ministered at a young adult conference years ago, and I was talking with the minister of the youth and young adult, and she was saying how, people don't value youth ministry, or they don't put enough emphasis in youth and young adult ministry. And if you don't put enough emphasis, enough resources, enough programming into youth and young adult ministry, then when I go to the women's conference, I'm on the ground, my dress all tangled up, they spitting and purging and sweating and got gel all over my clothes because nobody helped prepare them for womanhood, okay? Or maybe they were prepared, but partially. You prepared them maybe with etiquette lessons. You told them what not to do, but you didn't tell them if they did do it, what would be the healthiest way in which to do it. And so I believe the reason that sometimes we do some heavy lifting for those of us who do women's conferences, minister to women. We do some heavy lifting at the women's conference because nobody helped to heal the little girl at 15. So the little girl comes to the women's conference at 50. And then by the time I go to my hotel room, I'm exhausted, okay? And I know that that is what God has called us to do, but that is the reality of it, that we're on the floor and we're trying to get everybody delivered because there's been 35, 40 years of no one acknowledging what needs to be healed. And we don't realize that there are some women, before they're even young adult, there's a brokenness, whether it's because of molestation, whether it's because of sex that they engaged in willingly with another young partner before they could navigate and understand what the whole experience was. So by 20, we got a situation. Houston, we got a situation. And some of us have had those situations. We know people with those situations. We're the result of the situation. So I think this book is going to be a game changer. And so as I say in the title, if I'm going to be broken, I don't need to be broke. And so I believe that God gives us the power to get wealth. And everybody has to determine what gift God has given you to gain and get wealth, okay? So for some of us, it might be you know how to sell real estate. For me, I know how to write. I know how to tell stories. I know how to tell stories, God's story, in a way that helps to set captives free. And so because I've been captive, I can help you get free, okay? It's kind of like the Underground Railroad. Like Harriet had to get herself free, and then she's like, come on, I know the way. And so I'm continuing to be freed from some of the situations, the challenges, the relationship issues that I've gone through. So it's like, if I just get a little glimmer of light and I just get a little bit of path, it's like, come on with me. Let's all get free, okay? And when we're free, our children can be free, our communities can be free, and our world can be free. And if you have been looking at the news within the past couple of days, you know that godly people who are advocates for righteousness and justice, we need to be free because we got work to do, okay? So we have to be free because there is so much work for our hands to do. So remember, February the 9th is the actual release of the book in the earth via Amazon. And then on February the 13th, so this is strategic, Valentine's Day weekend, okay? And some of you might have dates and some of you might not. I'm going to have a date at my virtual launch party at 11 a.m. So it's kind of like a brunch. So just bring you a mimosa, okay? And it will be on my Facebook pages, my Dr. Alicia page, as well as the Diggin for Treasure page. Trust me, you'll have more than enough notice. So join me for my Instagram family. Y'all gonna be coming to the party too, all right? Y'all gonna be coming to the party, so just wait for your invitation. So we're gonna have a phenomenal time. I will go through the chapters, the 10 essays that I've written. Some of my friends will join me on Zoom and they'll be able to ask questions. Today, the last person I write about him in the book. He's kind of the last person I've dated. And he called me this morning. I hadn't talked with him in a couple weeks, maybe a month or two. And he said, I've been thinking about you. I said, yeah, you've been thinking about me for 2 weeks, but your ego wouldn't let you call me. I said, I'm a spiritual person. I know when you were thinking about me. But anyway, so I said, oh, I have a book that's coming out. You're in the book. He goes, oh, by name? I said, no, I didn't put no names to protect the guilty. So I said, I didn't put no names to protect the guilty. So I'm excited about what's going to happen with the book. It's not a book for everyone. So not everyone will resonate with this book. For those who, have had perfect dating lives, for you, if you've had perfect, you've only been with one man your whole life, this ain't your book, because you're going to be judging, okay? You're going to be judging. And I'm very clear, it's a book that people will judge, and that has been my concern. I think we're always concerned about how people are judging us. But, after being in this pandemic, I'm like, the way folks dying, people going to judge you anyway. If you're going to go out with a testimony that's going to help somebody. All right. If you're going to leave this earth, leave a deposit in the earth that then helps somebody. All right. So that's just what I'm hoping to do with the book. Again, February the 9th, the book releases on Amazon. February the 13th is the virtual book launch. If you have a podcast or someone who would be open and interested in having a conversation with me about my book, there's a, they have a way to get what it is that I'm trying to do to a larger audience. Hit me up, all right? Just tell them to call me, all right? So we can hook up something, you know what I'm saying? And I'd love to talk with them about this book. I hope that you will join me for the conversations that we'll be having with the therapists that are coming on, with the sex educator that's coming on. And these are really crucial conversations of having conversations that maybe we've had in isolation with one or two people. But, I want us to begin to have these conversations, because if you can have these conversations as an adult woman, then you can kind of see your niece, your teenage daughter, even your son. Because I think sometimes we have maybe conversations with them that we don't have with our daughters. And we know what happens when that happens. All right. Any questions before I go off? I got my Facebook family here and I have my Instagram family. Any questions I can answer for you? Thank you all so much for joining me, for hearing me talk about digging for intimacy, sex, sensuality, and loving God. Because one of the things my book editor and I were talking about, like, we think God goes in the closet when we're doing any of this. God is right there, okay? God is present and accounting for. So some people find it difficult to love God when they feel like they're in their sexual sin, but God is right there and present, and God keeps us and protects us and holds us, especially when we enter into relationships that sometimes destroy us, and they hurt us and they injure us. And sometimes we injure other people. So it's not just people injuring us. Sometimes we do the injuring. And so sometimes we have to own that. There is going to be a flyer, Reverend Moore. There will be lots of flyers, okay? So I am compiling all of my speakers. I'll have individual flyers for them, as well as I'll have a composite flyer. And then you'll, of course, trust me, you will have links, you will have calls, you will have text messages, emails. You're going to have all of that, because that's what we do over here. So definitely I will share that with you. So I'm excited about this work. And I pray that you can kind of, share it with other people. Go ahead and find 4 girlfriends to read it with and say, you know what, we're going to get this book. The book is $15.99. I've been buying some $20 books that I have yet to read. Some of them, I flipped through it. I'm like, I just sold into a ministry. I'm not saying it's not a good book, but I'm just saying, some of it's been poetry, or, I bought a poetry book like from somebody in Virginia, like years ago. I still got it. I just wanted to sow into the ministry. I met her at a Jamaican restaurant. I'm always sowing into people's writing ministry, because that's what I believe you should do. You should support other people. So I do that. But this is a book. I think you're going to sit down and you're going to read it, and you're going to be like, whoa, whoo, 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 Lord. It's going to be a lot of that. It's going to be some laughter. It's going to be contemplation. It's going to be reflection. And so, I think you're going to have a variety of experiences, and there's a playlist. One of the chapters talks about music and how music frames our understanding of sex and sexuality, and how music frames, even as a young person, so when we think about, for those of us growing up in the 90s, we're listening to Troop, we're listening to Silk, we're listening to, I remember my senior year in high school, I'm listening to Let Me Lick You Up and Down till you say stop. I'm 17 years old, and I'm having to make sense of what's really going on here. That music that we came up listening to, it frames our, our thought process about sex, because you're like, what? I want to get freaky with you. I ain't ready for all of that just yet. And then we're like, oh, maybe I got something to look forward to. But all that kind of music, every generation has had its music that has been risque, and it's music that's so very graphic, okay? Very graphic music. And that shapes and frames how we view sex, how we have partnered, and how we've desired intimacy. Because if you watch Video Soul in the 90s, okay, log off. I'm telling you, Sansera, when in the 90s, we had a lot of songs, okay? We had a lot of songs, whether it was Uncle Luke or whether it was Gladys Knight. A lot of songs was telling us a lot of things. I have a whole chapter on that, but what I was saying before I got a little derailed, I have a playlist at the end of the book. So it's different categories of music to accomplish different experiences in your life. So to accomplish, you know, being in a place of joy, to accomplish really hearing God's voice as it relates to God's love for you, to accomplish worship, to accomplish just being excited about the love that you will one day have. I got a playlist because I think most people know that I love music. So I've curated this playlist that hopefully you'll be able to listen to some of the songs you might know, some of the songs you haven't heard of, but they are on YouTube. So you can access that, have your own experience. Got the resource list. And that's all. I'm just grateful to God that I have the pen of a ready writer, and that God has anointed me with the ability to tell stories that reach people, that have influence in the earth, that help people heal themselves so that they can heal their homes and they can heal their communities. When our communities are healed, then our world will be in a better place. And that's all I got to say. Amen and ashay. I don't think I have any questions from either audience. So Instagram, thank you for being with me. Y'all are the real G's. I want to get to know some of my Instagram friends because they hold me down over at Instagram land. So thank you all so much. I look forward to sharing my book with you. And we'll have some more talks. And then Facebook, where I hang out all the time. You know, I'm like y'all cousin. Thank you so much for being with me. And as always, continue to look and to live. Take care until I meet with you again. Thank you so much, Minister Reverend Moore, for your support in advance. My Sora, my sister, my friends who are over here. Take care.